My point has always been one, if you don't have an open discussion, um, then that's when you're always going to have the problem, right? You're always going to have the problem when you do not do that. So, Paul, let me know if we can get Dr. for holding up by 6:15, that would be great. Okay, because that way I can smoothly transition. And I'm going to come over to you as quickly as I can, Reverend, so I can get you off by about 6:20, 7:20 your time. But in fact, I'm coming to your neck of the woods, but I think, well, I'll tell you about it when I, I'll, yes, yes, but I'll tell you all about it because I, of course, heard um, what Stephen told me about you and the hotels. So we'll talk about that. But not now. We're on Facebook Live. Hey, 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 everybody. Well, this is a time when you just kind of got to be a little careful. Everything is so. In fact, I was talking. Dr. Verholden brought on to the show yesterday. Because now there's a lot of discussion about whether people are going to be treated or not. Depending upon whether they've been vaccinated, whether they've gotten the shots or not.
Right. Right.
And I was telling her, she was saying, she's been vaccinated, after much back and forth. And she was saying that, she said, honestly, I feel some kind of way if they prioritized an unvaccinated person over a vaccinated person. I said, the fact that they are even, the fact that they are posing this way, the fact that they have put this into the discussion, I said, this is very dangerous. I said, because first of all, that's not your job. You're supposed to save a life. And you're not supposed to deny people therapeutics, which is what they have been doing. I said, a lot of these COVID cases don't have to go this far. Join me in celebrating a return to sanity. They are refusing to give people medicine. It's crazy. You are listening to WC. There was this woman, a CNN story. She has cancer. She got COVID. She went to the doctor. Well, I'll tell you about it. This goes just so much. Stay right there. Hey, everybody.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, Friday, October 29th, 2021. I cannot believe we're 4 weeks away from Thanksgiving and Christmas. Oh my gosh, this is great. Where did 2021 go? I'm Santita Jackson. I am coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio. I talk to my friends up there, my brothers and sisters in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Shout out to you, Chad Larson, and all of my people up there in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Can't wait to get up there. We're planning a visit, Pastor Williams, to get up there and just kind of see all the people I'm talking to up there. So I cannot wait. I'm going to work on that. Sending you much love today. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Pam, I want to hear you. I just heard you on Tom Hartman's show. Want you to talk to me today about Build Back Better and what's been cut. What's been cut. And let us be very, very clear. I saw Michael Moore's comments yesterday, and they just struck me. This was a give-in to corporate Democrats. And you have corporatists on both sides of the aisle, whatever that aisle is, whatever that really means. You have corporatists who are pushing the agenda in America today and in the world. And it's taking food off your table. It's taking food out of your babies' mouths. It is denying you opportunity. It is keeping you poor. It is keeping you scrambling. And we need to talk about that today. Is this $1.75 trillion enough? It started off at $16 trillion, everybody. Then it was negotiated down to 6, and then to 3.5. And then they held the line. And it was agreed upon. this is something we were going to go forward on. And then suddenly Sinema and Manchin, the senators from Arizona and West Virginia, then that was a problem for them. Are you kidding? So we need to talk about that today. I want to know what you think about this compromise and what you think about them even going even further, trying to ram through the hard infrastructure bill and leaving Build Back Better. What else were they going to take out? So the progressives are holding the line. So I want to talk to you today. I want you to tell me what you're thinking about this. As you can hear, I'm a little hot about it because I'm thinking about all of the things that have been taken out of this bill that we need. So call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763. WCPT 773. Lorraine, please put that up. 773. And Michael Ann, you all put that up too, both of you. My original morning stars. 773-763-9278. Let everybody know that we want to hear their voices today. We're going to have a wonderful round table, and we and you, and the only person who's missing at that table is you. So go on and give me a call and let me know what your thoughts are. Of course, Chicago is going to have a high of 58 degrees today. It is autumn, everybody, and it is beautiful. And it's going to be rainy, though. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 55 degrees and partly cloudy. The Dow closed up 239 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed up 212 points, and the S&P 500 closed up 44 points. Good day on Wall Street, everybody. But what about on your street? The World Series, the Astros will be in Atlanta tonight. Ooh, what's going to happen? Going to be an exciting game. The Knicks, well, they were triumphant over the Bulls. It was a squeaker. 104 Knicks, 103 Bulls. The Timberwolves will be playing Denver tonight. And well, the Wilds, they fell last night. 4-1, sending them much love. And the Blackhawks will be playing the Hurricanes today, or should I say tonight. Congress has headed out for the week without officially coming onto an agreement about the Democratic spending bill or the bipartisan infrastructure bill, despite enormous pressure to seal some deals before President Biden's European trip. Indeed, as we speak, he is meeting with another head of state, the Pope. That's right. It will not be recorded, at least not for us, but we will get a chance to see the still photos. We can't wait to see that. He's only the second Catholic president in our history. So this is a great personal moment for him, but they have a lot to discuss. Climate change, and everyone is saying that ahead of this G20 summit. Well, everybody's not going to be there. Russia and China will not be there, which is interesting. They'll make video appearances, but they have much to discuss. And remember, the biggest faction of Catholics to give money, the most money to the Catholic Church, is the American Catholic Church. Something to think about, everybody. The Build Back Better bill, we're going to talk about what's in it and what's out. What's out is paid family leave, free community college, 2 years of free community college, dental and vision coverage in Medicare, lower prescription drug prices, universal pre-K thankfully remains the same in the child earned income tax credit, but that's only going to be funded for 1 year. We're going to be talking about that today. What do you think? Is that enough? Is that enough? It's a $1.7 trillion plan. It was 16, so it's about 11% of where we were. Just think about this, everybody. Weeks of family leave by country. The United Kingdom, 39 weeks. Ireland, 26 weeks. Finland, 23 and a half weeks. Australia, 18 weeks. Denmark, 18 weeks. France, 16 weeks. Switzerland, 14 weeks. America, 0 weeks for paid family leave. And Hannah, I hear you, but today we're going to talk about Build Back Better. But you know what? Next week we will talk about this story that you sent to me. I was listening to you. Thousands of migrant parents and children separated from each other at the U.S. border by the Trump administration may soon be eligible, everybody, for hundreds of thousands of dollars per person in compensation, according to 3 sources familiar with ongoing negotiations in a lawsuit brought on behalf of the separated families. The Wall Street Journal first reported on Thursday that the Biden administration is in talks to offer separated migrant parents and their children around $450,000 per person. That would mean that if a parent and child was separated at the border, together they would be eligible for a combined payment of $900,000. The talks are part of a negotiation between the Justice Department and lawyers representing the separated families. And you cannot pay people for the trauma inflicted upon a family. But I know that there's a lot going on there, Hannah. I hear you, I feel you. And so we're going to be talking about that next week. I promise. I promise. I promise. But if you want to call me and talk about it today, feel free. 773-763-9278. In the meantime, with the resumption of in-person classes in the nation's second largest public school district, that is Los Angeles, school officials are juggling COVID protocols, and they're seeing something very disturbing. A recent Los Angeles Times analysis found that the percentage of A, Bs, and Cs earned by Latino students in the second semester of 2021 dropped by over 10 points, everybody. That's a lot. From 79% to 68% compared with the fall of 2019, before the pandemic. For English language learners, the drop was deeper, over 12 points. What are we going to do about our children, everybody? They need our help. They need our help. And there's a New Orleans shoeshine man, who has something to celebrate. Kermit Warren, an out-of-work shoeshine man from New Orleans, was carrying nearly $30,000 in cash through an airport in Columbus, Ohio, last November, when federal drug agents stopped him and began asking questions. He was returning home with his life savings after the purchase of a truck fell through. He had a one-way plane ticket, no luggage, and he gave some shaky answers, that's what they said, about himself and the cash, leading the agents to suspect that it was drug money. He wasn't charged with a crime, but the agent seized all of his cash, and it stripped him bare, everybody. And so he got good news this week. Federal prosecutors agreed to return all of his money and dismiss the case. Wow. People don't want you to have cash now. Isn't that interesting? Pastor Tisha Williams, I was in the airport a couple of weeks ago, and, you just turn into the kiosk, and just because you're just going to walk in. And I was like, this is interesting because they actually have there's a turnstile. What is this? No, you have to put your charge card. You have to present that. Wave it so you can get into the kiosk. You can't just walk in.
Whoa.
Is that crazy? I'm
not seeing them.
Please, I'm sorry. And more, they don't want you to spend cash. And see, that hurts people like this gentleman, okay? Everybody's not making a huge salary. Mr. Kermit Warren, who is a shoeshine man, and people need their shoes shined. And does he need to go through the bank and get it charged? That's crazy. Sorry, I just have a real problem with that, because the unbanked are poor people. And they're going after poor people because the Biden administration, indeed, they put forth the idea that if you had a transaction of over $600 in your bank account, it needed to be reported to the IRS. I'm like, really? While you all giving trillions to corporations to help them stay afloat during the pandemic? Oh, Pastor, please. Pastor Tisha Williams, it gets me hot. First Baptist Church, Bridgehampton in New York. But of course, I see you, sis. Fantastic. Look, go to Amazon and get it. Girl, I need some good news today. What's going on?
Well, you just talked about those who don't have as much, and it's always right on time. You're always right in sync
We're in
with what
sync.
I'm going to say. Good morning, everyone. Today I'm talking about a little goes a long way. Of John, one of the disciples, it was Andrew, brother to Simon Peter, said, there's a little boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but that's a drop in the bucket for a crowd like this. And Jesus said, make the people sit down. There was a nice carpet of green grass in this place. They sat down, about 5,000 of them. Then Jesus took the bread and, having given thanks, gave it to those who were seated. He did the same with the fish. All ate as much as they wanted. We learned from John's account this morning that all the food that was available in that vast crowd was the small lunch of a little young boy. That's all they had. All he had was 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Now, I want you to understand these loaves were not big, long loaves like what we get from the bakery or the bread store, but rather they were small, round pieces of bread, almost about the size of a biscuit. These fish were not trophy bass or large salmon or 700-pound yellowfin tuna. They were salted fish that the people people of that area ate, for they were only about the size of a sardine, and yet God used this little boy's lunch to feed over 5,000 people. That's encouraging today, because when you consider your life as a little boy or little girl, you likely never thought that you would grow up to do so much, that one little gift that you had, that one little inspiration you had, that one little spark that you had could change a whole community and potentially a whole world. Your life today is proof that you don't have to have a whole lot to make an impact on this world. I want to encourage somebody today. Somebody right now is thinking that they're just not enough. God is saying you're more than enough. You are a living example that a little goes a long way. What do I mean? Well, you can have a little education and still be enormously wise. You can start with a little job and make it a great career. You can have just a little bit of love for someone that becomes a whirlwind romance. A little bit of drive can change the whole world. Your little goal can make life easier for someone else. Your little business plan can change corporations. I'm here to tell you today that we all have a definition of what success is. And for most people, it's monetary and material, and that's fine. But what really defines how successful you are in life is how many people love you and how many people you love back. It's the little things you do that make a tremendous impact. That is a successful life. In this text, to feed 5,000 men, women, and children, it would have required them to empty their basket and return to Jesus for refills. But don't you know, every time they came back, they probably expected that Jesus had run out of food. You know how that happens at the family reunion, right? But Jesus never did. Jesus never ran out of food. What does that tell us? You may have a little, but God never runs out. God never runs out of love or grace or peace or protection or grace or mercy or provision. God never runs out. And here's the little thing that matters the most, a little bit of faith. I know most of you believe that God can only use you if you have tremendous faith, but I'm here to let you know this morning that no matter where you are today, filled with faith or running on empty, God can still bless your life. God can bring your little abilities, and if you bring them to Him, watch how God uses them and multiplies them. I always say God's gifts and blessings are not only subtraction and addition, but they are exponential. They are multiplying. He specializes in using the small things to amaze men and reveal His glory. How do I know? A little faith allowed Peter to walk on water. A little faith the size of a mustard seed can move a mountain. A little yeast leavens a whole loaf of bread. A little goes a long way. So here's the good news. No matter where you are in life today, your life is proof that our God can make your little more than enough. That's the good news.
Oh, amen. Pastor Tisha Williams, the author of I See You, sis. You might think you're a little bitty spot in God's universe, but oh no, you're big. You are big, you're big, you're big. God gives us just enough, doesn't He?
Always.
Gives us just enough. And let me not assign a gender, because I think God goes beyond gender. That's for us.
Correct.
And that's for us to figure out and to work out and to work through and to live through. That's our experience. But God is so much bigger than all of that. And so, you will hear me refer to God as God, because I think God is so much bigger than that. As my mother said, why does God need genitalia? I said, my mother comes up with a lot of little gems. She just drops them on you. We got Dr. Deborah Holden. Oh, man. She'll drop them on you, and you're like, that was, okay, gotcha, Mom. Gotcha. She said, it's true. God is bigger than that. God is bigger than you. God is bigger than all of us, and yet God is in all of us.
Correct.
Because, of course, I always love getting as much information as we can from Dr. Deborah Holden. Dr. Deborah Holden, epidemiologist, associate dean of public health at Michigan State University, and she's at their medical school. They brought her from Johns Hopkins, where she still is, but they brought her from Johns Hopkins to build their school of public health. Such is her brilliance and her dedication to equity, everybody. She's building it in Michigan, where, we see people struggling with unemployment, and we see the very wealthy. We see some of everybody. Do we hear India, our baby, with us today?
Yes, and you know what? My sweet baby slept all night, and then she just got up, and I went to change her, and she pooped right on me.
Everybody, we've got our baby. We've got our Morning Star baby with us. That's right.
Good
India's
morning,
with us
Star
today.
Baby.
She is,
Good morning, Star Baby.
and she only poops because that's just little baby poop, as my mother said. It ain't nothing. She's a little baby.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Oh,
Easy to say when you're not sitting here with it.
I know, but we're so glad that she's healthy and with us. Which what a blessing, what a blessing! And we see how much joy she's brought to you and your family's lives. When I saw that picture of you, 3 generations, you, your daughter, and your granddaughter, I said, what a blessing! What a blessing
Yeah, it is.
in your life! What a blessing! Well, you know what? We're still in the midst of this pandemic, and we're finding though that emergency rooms are clogged with people, but they're not all COVID patients. In fact, we're seeing
Yeah.
something that you forewarned us about, Dr. Furholden. You said, wait a minute, we've got flu, we've got pneumonia, we've got other viruses, we've got other illnesses. A lot of people not even doing the self check so that they can find out if they've got a lump or something. What would you tell us to do at this time? You know, with we're still in the pandemic, and yet now we're moving into winter, and you know we're dealing with some other issues.
Well, this is the time. I've been saying it. This is the season, really. Take the reins of your own health. Take the reins of your own health. Sorry, guys.
No, girl. Wait a minute.
Okay.
My father says there's nothing wrong with a crying baby because that means that baby's alive. That's all right.
Yeah.
No, but if you
Yeah.
need to step over, that's okay. Because we don't want her to be upset.
That's all right. Her mom's here now.
Look, Maria said, I have no problem changing a baby's poopy diaper. This is baby. And she said, now an adult. Well, that'd be a lot of love.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah, but no, this is really the time to take the reins of your health. You know, it's funny, and some people got this all the way backwards. Last year, we had a record low number of flu cases. That was all over the world. Why? Because a lot of the same precautions that people started implementing for COVID, but also protect people from flu and the spread of other things. Now what we're seeing is, as we've eased up on some of those things, we're starting to see not only increases in COVID, but increases in other, infectious diseases. And it's the collateral effect of what happened during COVID. We shut down primary care. We laxed off on screening and preventive care. And so they reported this year that there was this dramatic increase in breast cancer in African-American women. And I told people, take that with a grain of salt. I think that's an artifact of the people who did not get diagnosed last year.
Okay.
That's what that is. It's not like there's some real increase, but if we would have had 100 cases last year, but only 50 of those cases got diagnosed last year, well, the breast cancer is no less there. It just didn't get detected until this year, right?
Okay.
And so that's what we're seeing now. We're sort of having to play catch up and dealing with the collateral damage of the major disruption that we had in our healthcare system. We don't talk about this a lot, but my sort of real wheelhouse is drugs and violence. And we've had tremendous increases in overdose deaths, and violence has gone off the charts in most major cities around the country.
Why do you think that is?
You would think.
I've got like a minute and a half. What's going on?
I think there's a couple of things that are happening. Number one, a lot of the things that are at the root causes of violence only got worse during the pandemic. People were really struggling financially, a lot of people, during the pandemic, and that forces people into scenarios where they have to do what they have to do, or people do what they have to do, to keep food on the table. Many of the other root causes of violence and its connection to the drug trade and other things, none of that stuff went away. Substance use went up during the pandemic. So substance use has gone up. So is the violence associated with the drug trade. So, how Pastor Tish says COVID is a snitch. COVID just told on all of our pre-existing problems and made many of them worse. it just exacerbated those things. So, it's not like a complete surprise to me, but we're going to have to play catch up. And we keep talking about these COVID vaccines. Kids,
30.
many kids missed a lot of vaccines during COVID. Why? Because you can't give somebody a shot via a telehealth appointment. And when primary care and all of that good stuff shut down for months,
15.
when we started to re-engage, it was via telehealth. And I had some really cool telehealth appointments. It's actually really interesting to me how quickly my physician got up
5.
and was able to give me an exam, and I was able to support her giving my daughter an exam remotely, who turned out she had a kidney infection. And she literally is telling me, okay, put your hand right here on her back and push. Does that hurt? As soon as I pushed down, my dad, ah. And I said, wow. She said, yes, that's where your kidney is. So now the infection has moved up and it's in your kidney. I said, man, this is cool stuff.
Well, you know what? Next week I want you to talk to us about that, but I need you to stay with us just a little longer, because 2 of these programs that you said we needed were moved out of Build Back Better. And I need some comments from you about that. Yeah. Grandma can't get her choppers. Back in just a minute. Santita Jackson Show. Oh. Yes. Yes. A lot of things from paid family leave. Thankfully, India came here healthy. Your daughter's healthy. Jordan is great. Everybody's healthy. But if you have a child who is born with some challenges, or if you have challenges, because we know Black women in particular, well, maternal mortality for all women, red, yellow, black, brown, and white in the United States, is off the charts. And for Black women, exponentially so. You can't get paid family leave. That's off the table, Dr. Deb. Are you still there, Pastor Williams?
Off the table?
Yep. That's off the table.
Still here.
Yeah. It's off the table. Off the table.
We have Attorney Connolly.
Off the table. Off the table. A lot of stuff they pulled off the table. Yes. Aaron Connolly? Oh, yeah. And, hey, how you doing?
I am well, despite the frustrations about this bill.
Oh, look, I'm not frustrated. I'm mad about it. I'm telling you right now, I'm hot about this. Because, to me, it was a corporate hit, And I'm going to pull up what Michael Moore said, because I thought that what he said was just so appropriate.
And we have Attorney Vittillo.
Attorney Vittillo, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, look. I want our money back. Corporations, they're the ones who got paid. So, Dr. Verholden, they stripped it all the way down. And I will let I'll let Robert set the table on that, but it all the way down. But I'm gonna. He talked about it. Let me download this. That's what I meant to do. And let me do this. Okay. Because I think that he had the perfect. Is everything okay with India now? Dr. Deb? Ooh.
Yes, sorry.
No, honey. It's up, honey. Look, your priority is that baby, okay? We know that.
You gotta get how hilarious this is. I take her diaper off to change her, and as I'm sliding the new diaper under her, and it's dark because we're in my room. As I'm sliding the new diaper under her, my hand is getting wet. I can feel something. She's pooping, and I just put my hand right in the poop. And I don't have the diaper thread all the way underneath of her. And she looks at me with her little strange face, and then she just smiles. She's just as happy. Like, I guess that relief is just as good for her as it is for an adult. She just pooped on Grandma's hand.
She's fine. You taking care of that. How about that? She's right there. Look, she's doing just fine. And she just has poop. She's just a precious one. Hey, Vanderlei. Hey, Dave. Hey, Maria. Who's
3.
on it? Linear Bob out there in Silicon. Sending you much love, everybody, today. I want you to call us at 773. Calvin, how you doing? You smell pork. Yeah, I smell a mess. Francis. Paula. Everybody put those names up. Put those numbers up for me, okay? 773-763-9278.
5.
You can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Friday, October 29th, 2021. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, WCPT 820 here in Chicago, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And my morning stars over here on the Santita Jackson YouTube channel. Everybody, please head on over there, the Santita Jackson YouTube channel. And if you want to stream us on Facebook, you can go to the Santita Jackson Friends page, WCPT's page as well, and WCPT 820. But you can also go to WCPT820.com and stream us live, at AM950radio.com and stream us live. And if you want to hear the podcast of this show, go to WCPT820.com/Santita. What happened to Build Back Better? And, there was a deal. Okay, it started at $16 trillion. That was Bernie Sanders' original idea. It came down, it was negotiated down to 6, then it got down to 3.5, and that was the agreement. And we would link that to, human infrastructure, to hard infrastructure, and we vote on them together. And that's how the progressives said, okay, we can deal with that. And then everything came apart. You had two corporate Democrats, Senators Sinema and Manchin, who said, I don't want paid family leave. 2 years of free college tuition? No. Now, mind you, America is real. In the United Kingdom, you get 39 weeks of paid family leave. 39 weeks. Ireland, 26 weeks. Finland, 23.5 weeks. Australia and Denmark, 18 weeks. France, 16 weeks. Switzerland, 14. America is 0. And we're looking at the European nations because that's where we're aligned, everybody. Michael Moore put it this way. So before I go to my panel, I just want to give you a little bit of this. He said, after the promise of major legislation that would rival the impact of FDR's New Deal, Joe Biden's Build Back Better agenda has been sucked dry by corporate America and their pawns in the Senate. Instead of massive new programs to help children, parents, students, the elderly, and all of us by dealing with the climate crisis, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema appear to have brought the $3.5 trillion bill down to some crumbs. And it was going over 10 years, everybody. And rather than having it all paid for by taxing the wealthy, these nascent trillionaires, because it has been estimated that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, for example, will be trillionaires within a decade or so. That they may be putting that to a halt as well, and they will. It's a monumental disaster, he continued, that will not only hurt the American people, but will once again expose the Democratic Party as weak, feckless, and still in the grasp of Wall Street, the pharmaceutical industry, and the usual special interests. Well, I don't think it could be said better than that. And he continued on and on and on. We have got Attorney Erin Connolly, of course, part of the family here, political organizer, and she has worked with Kyrsten Sinema when she was a progressive. Don't know what happened. Dr. Deborah Verholden stayed with us for a little while. She's babysitting India, this grandma's with us, but I wanted her to comment too because a lot of key components in Medicare were removed. I don't know if Pastor Williams is still with us, but these are things that we're all having to deal with. And so let me start with you. Attorney Robert Vittillo, Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, brilliant civil rights lawyer, and, of course, host of your own show. I'm sure you'll be talking about this, at least to an extent, on your show on WAOK every Sunday. It'll be this Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. What happened?
Oh, we got hustled. That's what happened. We got hustled pretty badly. Quite frankly, looking at the way that Joe Biden tried to sell this bill, the secret negotiations that took place between him and Schumer and Manchin. It very much seems like this wasn't Joe Manchin's plan to strip this bill. This is Joe Biden's plan to strip this bill. Because there's no way you get hustled this badly to go from 16 trillion to 6 trillion to 3.5 trillion to barely enough to get anything done at all. And if you look at the provisions that were stripped, paid family leave, who sat down in a Democratic negotiation between two Democrats and said, we got to strip out paid family leave? Dental and vision being covered. Who didn't want that? Free community college for 2 years. When we have one of the least educated nations in the world, that's something that you strip out of the bill. Lower prescription drug prices get stripped out completely. And when we're talking about the type of transformative FDR legislation, LBJ legislation, we've elected a master of the Senate, they said. Joe Biden's been in the Senate for 50 years, so he'll know how to bring people together and get bipartisan agreements. He knows how to move through big legislation. You guys remember all that? And so by that, he meant I know how to go in there, give Joe Manchin everything that he wants, and then go sit down in the corner. No, this wasn't Joe Manchin and Christian Sinema. This was Joe Manchin and Christian Sinema running interference for Joe Biden so that he doesn't have to take the political heat for something he didn't want to do in the first place. This is very clearly his old school conservative blue dog nature coming out, not wanting to have something too big, too many social programs. Even listening to Joe Manchin's justification saying, well, we want to be a nation that rewards work, and those, the same 1980s Republican rhetoric we got used to for a generation. So at this point, Democrats are going to get what they deserve in the 2022 midterms. I'm not going to get out here and try to sell this to black folks because we know they're going to come and try to do that. I'm not going to get out here and try to sell it to young people like this is something transformative and great. So we're going to end up running on the same old, well, at least we're not Trump, and they're going to lose 30 seats in the House. They're going to lose 10 senators, and then we'll see Trump whisked back into office in 2024, something along those lines, because they never wanted it done in the first place. And we can see by the amount of effort and energy they put into trying to get it done. This was just Joe Biden once again saying, I defeated the socialists like Bernie Sanders. And if he couldn't do it during the election because he needed them to get into office, he used Manchin and Sinema to run interference so he could defeat them this way.
Because it seemed like they were his proxies, to me. Because this is where you see the...
There's no way.
Yeah. No, go on.
There's no way you get hustled this bad if you didn't want to get hustled this bad. There's no possible way that Joe Biden's that bad at being president if he didn't want this to happen.
So call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. I absolutely embraced your analysis. I remember when the DLC formed in response to the Jackson campaign of 1984. Someone told me yesterday on the chat line, leave the 80s out of this. No. Because you saw the largest surge of Democratic voters, American voters in the history of the nation, in the history of the Republic. No one has registered more voters, am I right, Robert, than Reverend Jesse Jackson and his presidential campaigns and his subsequent campaigns to bring people into the process.
Absolutely correct.
To the shock of bringing 2.5 million voters onto Democratic rolls in 1984, we came across a memo at the Democratic Convention saying that they were going to form the Democratic Leadership Council, the Blue Dog Democrats, and if they were unsuccessful in overtaking the party in response to the threat the 2.5 million voters he's brought in, they were going to be Republicans. That was Al Fromm, that was Al Gore, that was Bill Clinton, that was Chuck Robb, who was then senator from Virginia, who was LBJ's nephew, that was Sam Nunn, the senator from New Jersey. Oh, I remember it well. So it's important for us to know what we're looking at. The DLC, the right-wing Democrat, the corporate Democrats. You saw more money come into the party, and you saw a rightward tilt. Aaron Connolly. Whew. I mean, this is unbelievable. It's totally believable. What did you think about this stripped down from $16 trillion to 1.7? How are you going to sell this? How are you going to sell this?
Well, I can't sell it. As when we look at how this bill was stripped down and how it looks like it's an attack on women and families in America. And I completely agree with Attorney Robert Vittillo's analysis. And, as we've been saying from a political standpoint, the risk of taking this bill down to the bare bones as they have is dire for 2022. This watered down, breaking promises bill is not going to motivate anyone, especially folks that are in an existential crisis, as we see with mass resignations from the workforce, where people are depressed from almost 2 years of a pandemic, where the promises that have been made from their elected officials that they worked hard for come up with nothing, right? When we look at the paid family leave portion of this, and while there were some victories, we'll call them, of watered down pieces that aren't as funded as they should be in this final bill, like keeping the child tax credit, for example, that keeps kids out of poverty, paid family leave disproportionately will impact women. It impacts families. It impacts people that are lower income, right? Most women who have a baby in America, as a baseline for the Family Medical Leave Act, which is the provision that is currently in place for folks to either take some sort of leave after a baby, is 6 or 8 weeks. Short-term disability is 4 to 8 weeks that you get. That is not enough time to heal your body, especially if you've had a major surgery like a C-section, and then you're expected to go back to work. I personally had to deal with this. At that time, I had 8 weeks to get back to work. I had gestational diabetes when I was pregnant. I had, developed into a chronic illness. That was not enough time to heal. We are not on par with every single country in the world. We're behind. This is just a common sense thing, and we're letting a nearly 75-year-old man who lives on a yacht decide what American women need after they have a baby. American women are not going to come out in droves and vote for folks that can't fight for them. That's just one provision. We look at the Medicare piece, and that's really, I think, going to be a cruel and unusual punishment for American seniors and for folks like the community that I advocate for, people with chronic illnesses like type 1 diabetes, people who are surviving cancer multiple times and have expensive medications. And I just want to, if I can have a minute to talk about what's at stake for folks that are like me that have been rationing insulin.
Wait, stop. You've been rationing insulin?
I have not. People like me with type 1 diabetes that have to ration their insulin.
Okay, because I want Dr. Deb to hear this, because I want her to respond to this. Yes, please.
You need insulin to survive. It was patented and sold for $1 100 years ago. Pharmaceutical companies have now exponentially raised the prices on this life-saving drug. I have to take it 4 to 5 times a day to literally stay alive. The people that are dying from rationing insulin are our young people. These are folks that are recently off their parents' insurance, that either are trying to get their life together to qualify for some sort of Medicaid or get an insurance with their employer. And the way that the supply chain and the system is working right now, you could pay up to $1,500 a month for your month's supply of insulin. $1,500. It used to be $20. So this is just in the last few years. So we see people that are in their 20s dying at higher rates than any other group from this insulin rationing. This bill would have allowed a negotiation in prices where that insulin price would have had to come down. So we see advocacy groups, patient groups all over the world actually issuing statements of not just concern, but they're pulling the fire alarm. And there's going to have to be another piece of legislation that addresses these gaps in our medical system, and people's lives are at stake. So again, these are family issues. When we look at seniors, okay, which is a huge voting bloc. I don't know how Kirsten Sinema thinks she's going to get reelected without the AARP behind her, but the cuts to Medicare for our seniors in states like Florida, Arizona, those are big voting issues for folks as well, and they're going to hurt people. They can't get dental care the way that they need. They can't get eye exams and get glasses and hearing aids and things to make our society functional and humane. And these are pieces that not only will these seniors vote on, but their family members too who are caring for them. It also gutted provisions for folks that are caregivers and supporting our most vulnerable populations. So I am absolutely heartbroken for the suffering that will happen in this country because we did not have the political will to stand up for what we deserve. And I commend the progressives for fighting, for holding the line, and for communicating what is really at stake. But it's a sad day for us right now.
Well, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar said, just follow the money. Because this is really, I think that Robert, you're spot on. I think that you're spot on, Attorney Connolly, Robert and Aaron. I mean, the fact is, this is about corporate America pushing back, the corporate world pushing back on the people. This is the corporatist and the populist, period. Full stop. That's it. That's all. I mean, Dr. Deborah Fairholden, we've got maternal mortality, which is off the charts in the United States, and for Black women, exponentially so. You've got people struggling, rationing, life-saving medicines, or taking animal-grade medicines. I did a story on this a couple of years ago when I first started here. People are moving back to animal-grade insulin because it's cheaper. I mean, now you're not going to expand Medicare coverage to cover dental or vision coverage. Okay, hearing services, yeah. But wow, how does that impact public health? Dr. Fairholden?
When we don't do a good job of taking care of everybody, we tax our system. And so here's what's going to happen. It's going to cost more. And the tab is going to come due. And the question is, who's going to pay? Because the reality of it is when people aren't able to get their basic needs met, when you aren't able to afford your insulin, when you have to ration it, when you can't do the things to take care of your health, you end up in care that is way more costly than prevention. Going to the emergency department and being in an emergency department, for an evening will cost way more than probably a year of primary care visits, just one emergency department visit. So it's like shape-shifting and moving the money around. We ultimately are going to have to pay. And then there's just the obvious human perspective of not making sure that people have their basic needs met. The kind of things that we need to be regulating, we just don't. And we over-regulate healthcare, but we don't regulate prescription drug prices. So it's just you can see where the values are. It's, to me, a classic case of profits over people. And we're going to pay for it ultimately. Can't just get kicked around and kicked down the road.
And I'm just wondering how they're going to be able to sell this. I mean, you cannot put a nice face on this, Robert. You can't. And how will do you think, will there be an immediate impact that we might see in Virginia on Tuesday?
I think you might, because I think Terry McAuliffe very much was counting on a big Democratic victory in a Rose Garden signing ceremony and being able to parade around the state saying, look, Democrats aren't idiots. We can actually govern within ourselves. And now he doesn't have that anymore. When you're dealing with a billionaire candidate who's able to push these social divisive issues, instead of talking about the issues affecting the American people, Youngkins is really, they're pushing this idea that transgender students are sexually assaulting girls in bathrooms because of Terry McAuliffe. They're making white children read Beloved, and it's corrupting them and making them have nightmares, those sorts of things. That's what they're running on. And so when you don't have any policy on McAuliffe's side of the aisle, then that opens it up for these social, the class warfare, social class war issues on the Republican side, and that might push them across the finish line because Terry McAuliffe very much needed a boost has been part of that old school 90s Clinton era Democrat that really that's not who people turned out for in 2020. You know, people wanted Justin Fairfax to be the Democratic nominee, but he was derailed by that terrible smear campaign against him. I'm hoping that he has the opportunity to come back in politics. But McAuliffe is not very popular there. He's a relic of the past, and he's very much more so. Terry McAuliffe is more in line with Joe Manchin and Joe Biden than he is with the progressive wing of the party, and people understand that. So it's going to be difficult for him to rally the type of energy that he needs. And as I said, at this point, Democrats get what they deserve. There's no reason for any of us to get out there and bust our tails to get him elected. Why? What's the point? So they can do the same thing Manchin did, and that's the prevailing sentiment you're going to get across the nation as people don't get the things that were promised. You know, we haven't even got to the stuff black folks asked for. That's not even on the table anymore. If you can't even get the stuff the white people wanted, then we know the black folks stuff ain't getting done. So we might as well just check out for the next couple of years. You know, what exactly is the point? Well, just let Joe Manchin and Joe Biden run it, since they think they know better than everyone else. So we'll see how that works for them.
Well, Silas Calvin said, yes, we are upset with the dirty Dems, but if we stay home and allow Trump and the Republicans to get back into power, they will continue the genocide they allowed to spiral out of control. I hear you, Silas, but you know what? That's not on. No one here is espousing not voting. Nobody's saying that. I was merely asking, how are you going to sell this to the voters? Because that's a problem. People are not stupid. People know what they voted for. And then the best thing that Joe Biden could come around with when he came up with this miraculous, I don't know how he got the nomination, but I know how he got it. The establishment Democratic Party came in on Bernie Sanders in the guise of Congressman Clyburn, who I like very much, but I don't agree with that. So they came in on him, and then Obama came in on him. All the big people came in on Bernie and shut him down. And you have two people who are doing well in the primaries. And they make the nomination. Okay. And then they rolled into the presidency because there was just so much antipathy toward President Trump, even though he got more votes than he got the last time. So having said all of that, the problem is now selling this to the American people and to the people who were desperate for change, who needed paid family leave. When a woman we have maternal mortality in the United States that is off the charts. Women are dying of every color, and black women especially. So when a woman gets sick, you mean to tell me like we did in slavery when black women had to drop the babies and go back in the field hours later? Really? Is that what we're doing? No paid family leave? In Britain, you get 39 weeks. In Denmark, you get 18 weeks. Here, you get no time. What? You're telling our elders? Well, we have someone who helped to construct the ACA, who said that, who mused aloud about whether we should he doesn't want to live past 75. Really? What is going on here? This is crazy. So, no, get out and vote. But as you vote, you need to make sure that these people you vote for deliver for you. There's nothing like an abusive relationship, and that is what this is. And that ought to be unacceptable to you. You ought to be sick of it. You ought to be sick of it. Are young people rationing insulin? I mean, come on, Aaron. What? In the United States? That is crazy. It should not happen any place in the world.
The corporate pharmaceutical profits more than we value the lives of these patients. And the thing that stings for this community, for folks like the little lobbyists, for folks like
their bosses in the corporate world, because the lobbyists work for somebody, Aaron. I think we need to start going to the source of the problem.
This is a group of children and parents who suffer from severe physical disabilities. So they're just children, and their group is titled the Little Lobbyists.
Oh, okay.
All gotten arrested in Washington, D.C. These are children in wheelchairs that we see being carted out of the Capitol because of protest, right? These are the folks that were made promises, the leaders of groups that advocate for patient rights, right? And the devastation I'm hearing from the families who sat sometimes in the room with President Biden and had assurance
1 minute.
that this would be in the bill, that this is inhumane. The White House put out some media directly from them focused on type 1 diabetic patients, and then to do this to the community is just devastating. And I remember being in meetings with Kirsten Sinema when she was a congresswoman with children who had type 1 diabetes and their parents telling their personal stories. I remember looking at her
20
face,
seconds.
and
30.
and she does not care. Joe Manchin does not care. These are real people that are going to suffer and die. So what I think we need to do outside of this is have an additional conversation about really what is America giving us anymore, and who
10.
is getting what we are supposed to have, right? This is taking money out of our pockets, out of our future.
5.
And Dr. Verholden said it very well. I think the cost-benefit issue on the back end is this is going to cost us more money. So
Absolutely.
These deficit hawks, it will cost us
Now
more
stay
money.
right there. Stay right
hurt and
there.
kill people.
Because we're going to talk about this some more on the other side of the break. I want to hear from you. 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. What about Build Back Better? How are we going to sell it in 2022? What will happen in Virginia on Tuesday? Back in just a minute. Santita Jackson Show. Hey, everybody, let me tell you something. I am not saying that you should not vote. I would never say that. I'm from a family that spent our whole lives trying to get people the right to vote and get people registered to vote, and then keep them inspired enough to vote. And then you keep fighting past the vote so that they know how to fight to get what they need after they voted someone into office, because all of that's part of the process. But I don't want to sit here and say, well, this is just what we're supposed to accept. We're not supposed to accept this. This was $16 trillion and not $75 trillion. How did it get here? It got here because you have corporatists, and our president is a corporatist. They went and they just stripped this bill apart. Food off your table. It might not be your table, but it's somebody else's table. It's taking food out of babies' mouths.
We have Mr. McKee.
It is denying people what they need, not what they want, what they need. You talk about all these, we have tens of millions of people leaving the workforce for a whole lot of reasons, not the least of which are vaccine mandates. And you know what? And the whole thing, there was a reset after we shut the society down. So a lot of the jobs that people have to go back to, they need another kind of training. That's where 2 years of free community college comes in. They don't have that now. Why? Slave labor is not how you build a country. That's not how you do everything. That is how we still want to follow. Shame on us. Hey, Dwight, how you doing?
Morning, how you doing?
Hot, as you can hear. So here we go. But okay, I'm looking through my papers. I've got Aaron Connolly. We've got Robert Vittillo. Okay, what's in it? And we're going to have David Massiotra. So it's great to hear you. Deborah, you still there?
Hello, Santita.
Hey, how you doing, David? How are you?
With us.
It's
Doing great. How are you?
good. Good. Okay, great. Sorry, got a lot of papers here I'm trying to manage. Okay. Okay, and who else do we have? Who do we have with us, Paul?
We have
I'm here. Thank you.
No, just hold on one moment. Dwight.
Attorney Vittillo. We have Dwight McKee, David Massiotra.
Okay, great. Fantastic. I didn't realize
As
Mark
well
was
as
going to get up with
Attorney
us today. Okay, great. Okay, fantastic. All right. So we'll get right to it. Thank you all so much for being with us today. All right. Got a lot to talk about today. Yeah. Yep. So, Dwight, how you doing?
Oh, fine. How you all doing today?
Great. Aaron, let me hear you.
Good morning.
Okay, got a mic check. David Massiotra, let me hear you.
Hey, Santita.
Great. Mark?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, now I can. Yes, I can. Robert Vittillo.
All right.
Good morning.
Fantastic. All right, we'll get right to it, and everybody can have at it. Is Dr. Deb still with us? I know she's babysitting this morning.
Dr. Verholden is not with us.
Okay, good. Well, you know what? I'll let him explain, Osa, that people might as well sit this out. I don't think that's what he meant, but I'm not going to speak for him. I'm going to let him speak. I'm not going to let him. I'm going to invite him to speak for himself. The question for me has been, how are you going to sell this to people who feel all we have to do is let our callers call in, because I'm not speaking for them. I'm repeating what they're saying. So I just want you to know that's where we are. Whew, this is a lot. Okay. Okay. But you all can keep talking. We have like a minute before we go up. You're saying there's a clicking noise on my voice? Linear Bob? Are you all feeling that? You all hearing that too? You know, also, it's not about liking President Biden or not. It's about liking his policies. When you meet him, I've had the privilege of meeting him many times now through the years. He's a very nice guy. But very nice guy. I mean, and I thought he was a nice guy when he was telling people not to vote for Reverend. I mean, in the most rugged and ugly of terms. Yeah, he did that in 1988. That having been said, it's okay. You know, it's part of the back and forth of politics. I get it. This is not about liking someone. This is about liking what they do, about their policies. Take that out of your political language, your political vocabulary. Stop falling in love with people. That is not what this is about. People need to deliver for you. If they don't deliver for you, they are not your friend. And whenever someone is elected, you must treat them as you must look at them as a neutral figure, someone you're going to have to fight to get what you need. Because now, once they get into office, the people who voted against them, who worked against them, become their friends. So you got to work real hard to make your friend who's holding office work for you. Because they're working for everybody. So, I think it's just also who oppose progress. Corporatists in both parties oppose progress.
30.
Period. And Democrats need to go on and stand up and be who we sent them there to be. Democrats are not living up to their platform. They're not doing it. The right wing, the corporatists took over the party in the 80s, and they're still there. Still there. That's what this is about.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Friday, October 29th. 2021. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to meet my morning stars over here on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook, but please go to my YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show. The Santita Jackson Show channel. Meet us over there. Please. Thank you, Philip and Linear Bob and everybody else. If you can, get on over there. And I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Let's talk about Build Back Better, which has been stripped all the way down from $16 trillion to $6 trillion to $3.5 trillion to $1.75 trillion. And mind you, this money is going over. It's going to be spread over 10 years. Wow. It's not 1% of GDP. It's a whole lot, everybody, and we want to hear from you today. Call me at 773-763-9278 and meet this wonderful panel. Chicago will have a high of 58 degrees today, and it will rain. Minneapolis, St. Paul, a high of 55 degrees, partly cloudy. The Dow closed up 239 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed up 212 points. The S&P 500 closed up 44 points. The World Series, the Astros will be meeting in Atlanta tonight. Who's going to go ahead in the World Series? The Bulls, well, they fell to the Knicks. The Knicks 104, the Bulls 103. The Timberwolves will be playing Denver tonight. And in hockey, well, better luck next time, Wild. They fell yesterday, and that's all right. The Blackhawks will be playing the Hurricanes, everybody. Let's get to some of these headlines. Congress is headed out for the week without officially coming to an agreement about either the Democratic spending bill or the bipartisan infrastructure bill, despite enormous pressure to seal some deals before President Biden's European trip. As we speak, he has been meeting with another head of state, the Pope, everybody, the Pope. We'll get a general sense of what they discussed today, but everyone believes that they're going to be talking about climate change. That's a real issue. The Pope, yes, he is a head of state, and although there are only 800 people in the city of the Vatican, there are 1.2 billion Catholics all around the world with whom he has tremendous sway, everybody. The Build Back Better bill, let's get right to it, everybody. Let's talk about that today. What's in it? What was taken out? And we've got a tremendous panel who can talk with us about it. We have been talking with Robert Vittillo, Southeastern Regional Director of Rainbow Push in Atlanta. And, of course, he hosts his own show on WAOK in Atlanta every Sunday. And you can listen to it all over the world from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. Attorney Aaron Connolly, brilliant political organizer and lawyer. And we have got Dwight McKee, social scientist, brilliant social scientist. We've got Reverend Mark Thompson, one of the top 20 civil rights podcasts in all of radio. That's right. Make it plain. Make it plain. I want to start with you, David Massiotra, from Salon Magazine, the author of your newest book, a book of which you reminded me of a whole lot of things that, I had pushed in the back of my mind. I Am Somebody, Why Jesse Jackson Matters. It seems like this topic is made for you today as we look at paid family leave that is now off the table with Build Back Better. In the UK, you get 39 weeks of paid family leave. In Ireland, 26 weeks. In Finland, 23 and a half weeks. In Australia, 18 weeks. The same in Denmark. France, 16 weeks. Switzerland, 14 weeks. In the United States, no paid family leave. I mean, 0 weeks. And indeed, Michael Moore put it this way, David Massiotra. He said, after the promise of major legislation that would rival the impact of FDR's New Deal, Joe Biden's Build Back Better has been sucked dry by corporate America and their pawns in the Senate. Instead of massive new programs to help children, parents, students, the elderly, and all of us by dealing with the climate crisis, Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema appear to have brought the $3.5 trillion bill down to some crumbs. Wow. Ooh, what do you make of this, David Massiotra?
Well, thanks for having me on, Santita. First, I would begin in a broad sense and say that, every so often we have to listen to maudlin speeches about the miracle of American democracy, and it doesn't look or feel or seem too miraculous when we live in a system where the Republicans in the Senate represent 40 million fewer Americans than the Democrats. The president wants to sign something, the House of Representatives will pass it, and the majority of Americans support it because all polls indicate that his social spending agenda is quite popular, but one corrupt, coal-covered senator in West Virginia has the power to stop it. That doesn't look like the greatest country in the world with the greatest democracy in the world. Let's wake up and live in the real world. Now, in the immediate present, if Joe Biden doesn't want to pass his agenda, it's become convenient for him to lay it on Manchin and Sinema because they're not showing any willingness to fight. I don't know what they do in these meetings, if they just ask Manchin nicely, if they use the magic word, please. But if they really wanted to fight this out, Biden and Schumer could call Manchin and Sinema into the Oval Office and say, get with the program because this is not compromise. If we want 12 paid family leave weeks, compromise means 6 or 7 if you want 0. It doesn't mean 0. Get with the program or we'll strip you of all committee assignments. We'll withdraw all Democratic support for your reelection campaign. That means you won't receive a dime of DNC money. And we will personally select and endorse your primary opponent. And if you think we're bluffing, try it, because we would just love to destroy your political careers. I could guarantee that Sinema, I don't know the woman, but she would fold like a lawn chair because she's in her first term. Manchin is perhaps a tougher nut to crack because he's a 70-year-old multimillionaire. But the fact that they're not fighting for their agenda makes them look pathetic and makes one wonder why they're there in the first place. And there is a frightening symbiosis there with the meekness and mildness that they're showing in the face of the escalating threat of fascism in the form of voter suppression, in the form of interference with election boards and school boards. And they're looking like, there's that old expression, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. I would like to see Biden bring a knife because right now it looks like he's bringing a pillow. Right now it looks like Merrick Garland's bringing a pillow. Right now it looks like Chuck Schumer's bringing a pillow. And if they're not going to fight for the progressive agenda for which 71 million Americans came out to vote in the middle of a pandemic, then they need to at least preserve our democracy in the terms of voting rights and election integrity. And if they're not going to do that, then, yes, I'm happy they're there because they aren't fascists like Cruz and Hawley and Trump, but we have to question, what are they going to do? And that's where we're left with. We're left with that unfortunate, painful, and tragic question.
Yeah, and who are you exactly? I think that you made the point that Robert made in the previous half hour that perhaps they are proxies for President Biden's real position, because no one's fighting. No one is fighting, David. Nobody. And to try, and I'm wondering how this is going to impact Terry McAuliffe, who's part of the so-called centrist, the corporatist faction of the Democratic Party on Tuesday.
And I would just add this very quickly because I know there's a whole lineup of other guests, and I'm sure somebody probably said this in the previous segment, but we wouldn't even be having this conversation if they would demolish the filibuster. So they're using these procedural mechanisms to negotiate with themselves and to obstruct themselves. And that's something that we never see Republicans do when they take the reins. Dick Cheney said to Jeffords in Virginia when he threatened to leave the party over disagreement with the right-wing agenda, we don't negotiate with ourselves. You want to leave the party? Go ahead. You have to be willing to take some risks to achieve anything, and power by definition is useless if you don't use it.
So what do you think, Dwight McKee?
Well, I've been saying all the time since day one that this was a proxy war, that Biden's goal is really to turn this into South Africa. They don't want a democratic society. They want a minority rule by white people who are in charge already. And everything else is just hoops and mirrors. We're the ones that's being manipulated based on our belief in a system that is set up to work against us. This is the thing I would have added to what David said is that then I would have told Manchin that we also going to send the environmentalists in to check your minds to look for safety violations. So you might not even have a mind to protect by the time we get through with you. But they know how to play hardball if that's what they want to play. They play softball because that's everything else is set up for that. They want to stay in charge. We have to, in my opinion, really have to go back to the days of our ancestors of the Booker T. Washington and the Elijah Muhammads and those who said that we need to, as black people, operate with self-sufficiency and set our own internal economy up like they did in Tulsa. If we keep believing that these guys are going to save us, we're going to always be in this state of limbo, and it's just a matter of us figuring out who's eating us, the lions or the tigers. One is Republican, one is black. Both of them have the same appetite, and we just sent the menu for both.
Mark Thompson, what do you see and what are you hearing?
Well, I know that progressives like Cori Bush are saying that they're not yielding any more than they did last week. Remember, their argument was, progressives was, we're not voting for infrastructure without Build Back Better. I was on the Hill yesterday demonstrating with Reverend Barber and Melanie Campbell, the Black Women's Roundtable, and Janice Mathis, the National Council of Negro Women. And everyone was saying the same thing, those of us on the progressive side. And the warning that Reverend Barber sent to progressives on the Hill yesterday was that they better not, again, vote for infrastructure without Build Back Better, because Manchin and Sinema, or Manchinema as I like to call them, cannot be trusted. Now, Cori Bush said last night, Congresswoman Cori Bush went a step further and said, why not make the Senate pass this new scaled-down Build Back Better and then send everything to the House? Stop, holding a gun to the House side's head to get this done. I think Manchin and Sinema are a problem. And I think that what the other guests have been saying about whether, or suggesting, or inferring, if you will, that Manchin and Sinema may be proxies. I think that is very much a possibility, because it is bizarre. We all go to school. Remember how Biden in the campaign asked, where was Trump during school? Well, most of us went to school, and in school you learn about a handful of presidents. You learn about Lincoln, just basic school. Elementary, you learn about Lincoln, you learn about Roosevelt, you learn about Kennedy, you learn
Nixon.
Now about Obama. It wasn't Nixon, or what happened to Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you learn about Obama as the first black president, but you also learned about Lyndon Johnson. And the one thing you learned about Lyndon Johnson was that, especially when it came to our case, civil rights, voting rights, he got and he made the legislature follow his cue. Really, FDR did the same thing. So the average American has no comprehension of a senator from West Virginia and half a senator from Arizona controlling the entire U.S. government and all legislation and all policy. That's incomprehensible to most people. So what happens is, again, we run the risk. And this is what, and when I say we, maybe I shouldn't say we, I should say the Democratic Party itself, because it's becoming existential now. Two people determined that there's not going to be a stop put to voter suppression, which therefore results in an existential crisis for the party itself. If these bills don't pass, particularly for the people, John Lewis, whatever, if these bills don't pass, Democrats will lose power next year. Next year is a couple of months away. So, it really causes one to wonder what is going on, who is pulling what strings. What was the point of getting Trump and the Republicans out only to turn around and hand it right back to them less than 2 years later? But in the immediate crisis, I know I'm going down the road a bit, but in the immediate crisis, I agree. Build Back Better, scale back, Build Back Better, Build Back Here, whatever it is. The problem is Manchin and Sinema. Put them on the spot. Let's see who they really are proxying for. Make all of this go through the Senate first. And if it doesn't, the House does nothing. And they might even say it may take the House progressives to save the party, because maybe the voters will say, well, maybe here's some Democrats who are actually doing something. But we cannot allow, and I'm not just saying this, I shouldn't put it like that. Let me put it that way, and I'm done, Santita. The organizations that we all know who are normally responsible for mobilizing the Democratic Party base to get out to vote say they no longer have the will or the morale as a resource to mobilize the Democratic base for a party that does nothing. Otherwise, they lose their credibility. You can't ask organizations like Black Voters Matter to keep going back to black folks saying, vote for this party, and they can't get anything passed with Manchin and Sinema. They're not doing anything. They're not protecting our voting rights. And the White House knows this. The Democratic Party leadership knows this. The DCCC, the DSCC, everyone knows this. And yet they are still allowing, possibly, if proxies are what they are, allowing these proxies to do this. So who are these people really working for? So, folks, I don't think anything really is. I don't see the progressives budging on any of this, and I'm glad Bernie Sanders is in the position he's in.
Good. They shouldn't. I mean, because, the DCCC and all of these entities, Democratic entities, they know this. You're right, Reverend Mark Thompson. I urge you to listen to his podcast, but so many of you do. That's right. Make It Plain, one of the top 20 civil rights podcasts in all of American radio. Robert Vittillo, why don't you respond to what you've heard? I mean, because they know this, but I don't think they believe it. And no one is saying, I hear you. You keep saying that, some people are trying to assume that we're saying don't vote. You just heard Mark Thompson. He was in Washington. This is where all of these entities are. They're saying, look, I can't take this man back into the fields. I can't, America. I can't. So, Robert Vittillo?
I think that's the point that we're trying to. No one is telling people not to vote. I'm telling people to vote their conscience. But the point is, for those of us who are in the organizing community, who are in the, there's a lot of people who hop on TV with a little chyron that says political strategists, but the people who are actually out here in the fields, registering people to vote, knocking on doors, signing up people for a list, doing the actual backbone work that keeps the Democratic Party operating, often with nowhere near the amount of money that the Democrats like to allocate for TV ads and consultants and private planes and galas and those sorts of things. So the nuts and bolts of the Democratic Party that's built on the county level often, there's no way for us to get out here in 2022 and sell this to black voters or to Latino voters or to young voters or to women voters or to the people that they're going to depend on to win the election. So my point is that I'm not going to get out here and embarrass myself trying to tell some folks in the West End of Atlanta or in the SWAT somewhere and on Campbellton Road, no, we got to get out there again because, look, we didn't get voting rights and we didn't get the For the People Act. We didn't get criminal justice reform. We did not get the climate change agenda we thought we were getting. We also kind of ruined Afghanistan on the way out the door. Inflation is really bad. And also, it looks like we've done nothing to prosecute all those white supremacists who are running around, so they're still knowing your neighborhoods. And so you should definitely get out here and vote again. Yeah. Well, my point is that they have to give us something to work with, and so if you're not going to give people something to work with, you're going to have apathy set in, and then you're going to have just straight up vitriol happen within the voting base. We saw this happen to Obama after 2009, after getting the watered-down version of health care pushed through, after not getting the rest of the agenda that he had campaigned on in 2008 pushed through, that Democrats had nothing to run on in 2010, and that's where the genesis of the Tea Party came from an unenthused, unmotivated Democratic base not turning out, and then the forces of white supremacy and the anger in the country, people mad about having a black president, those things were able to metastasize into an entirely new political movement that at the beginning was just a fringe apparatus that was the Republicans thought they could harness for their own purposes. Then by 2012, they had infiltrated the party. By 2014, they had taken over the party. By 2016, they had morphed into the MAGA movement, and then we have Trump as president. So we're looking at like we're going down the same path again, and I don't think you're going to have the same people on board to try to convince convince the American people or convince people in their communities again that we're not headed down that same path. So no one is saying not to vote, but we're just telling you the political realities of what happens when you're in those fields, knocking on doors, talking to regular voters, and you're giving a bill of goods to sell these folks. And I think a lot of us aren't putting our personal credibility or organizational credibility on the line again for people who aren't willing to stand up and fight for you.
Because you don't want to go into a room and get booed. I mean, and get shown the door before you even get down the aisle, before you even get to the microphone, because that's what happens. That's what happens, everybody. So this is all. I'm always going to tell you, you need to vote, because your vote is your voice. I can't even get the Democrats to suspend the filibuster to protect my vote here. To talk about justice and policing, are you serious? No. We got to get this right. And you go from $16 trillion to $6 to $3.5. And then, wait a minute, and the agreement was that they were all going to vote on the $3.5 trillion. That's where the betrayal comes in. And then they were going to couple it, the human infrastructure with the hard infrastructure. That was already agreed to. Then, well, it does sound like a master play of the Senate. Then we end up with nothing. Come on, you guys. Come on. And yeah, you still need to fight. You need to fight for yourself. They're taking food off the table of your children, taking food out of their mouths. That's what's happening. Does that not infuriate you? You need to do something about that. Don't be driven mad, and don't let your fuel make you a fool. What you need to do is fight for your rights. Fight for what you need. You have who you want in office. Now get what you need. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Everybody talk amongst yourselves. We have a couple of minutes before we come back up. Because I have the same couple of people saying, wait, we've got you all are saying don't vote, and and some of that is I get it, bending the conversation in that way. I make no apologies. I'm not going to tell you not to vote, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you need to take an insult. I'm going to tell you it's okay for people to take food off your table and out your mouth.
Exactly. Well, and Santita, I think what you're saying and what Attorney Robert Vittillo was saying is when we're recruiting folks to knock on doors, canvass, get out the vote efforts, those people are going to be less likely to volunteer and put everything they have into it if they're not going to get anything that we're promised, right? I think we're not saying not to vote, but it's going to make it harder for organizers on the ground to motivate our base, motivate the volunteers to come out, to do shifts, to make arguments to other people at the doors when they can come back and say, but we elected the Democrats and they didn't do anything we promised, right? I don't think anybody on your show or affiliated with Rainbow Push would ever tell anybody not to vote. That's definitely not what's being said. But it makes that work in the organizing so much harder when we can't point to a big piece of legislation that we were promised and ask people to come out and join canvas shifts when it's, snowing outside.
Well, I mean, when people feel that they have been betrayed, David, it makes it so difficult. I mean, I'm going to ask you about this when we get on the air. I mean, because you did a lot of research for this book, I Am Somebody, Why Jesse Jackson Matters. I mean, this is the DLC and corporatist Democrats were an absolute response to the populist, to the populist uprising led by Reverend Jackson, which was in the midst of the Reagan Revolution. I mean, Reagan fired a whole class of workers. Do you not remember that? Some of you don't. You don't remember that, David. I do, because I was on my way to college, and my mama and my Uncle Saint and Frank Hare had to drive me to Washington because my mother said, we are not getting on a plane. If your father wants to get on a plane, good for him. I'm not doing it. He just fired all of these air traffic controllers. Oh, David, this is nuts.
Yeah, I remember that. I was 3 years old.
Oh, no, you weren't. Get out of here. Anyway.
Yeah, well, what's so immensely frustrating about the comparison with the Jackson campaigns of the 80s is As you, of course, know, Reverend Jackson registered 6 million people to vote and ushered millions of new voters into the party, which, if the party wasn't under corporate control and if it made salient decisions, it would use as a blueprint for future organizing, outreach, recruitment, and mobilization.
Hold that thought. I want you to say when we get on the other side, because I want you to talk about that. Because there's a time when we have actually won. The Reagan Revolution was immensely popular, and yet Democrats were able to make inroads with a people-driven campaign, not a corporate-driven
campaign. Even Lee Atwater conceded.
Okay.
Lee Atwater said that Jackson kept progressive politics alive in the United States, and Reverend Jackson was the leader, but Atwater was referring to the entire movement.
Hold that thought. I want you to, because that can give people hope, because they're going to have to push. Stand by. We're coming up. And I've got callers who want to talk to you all.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. It's October 29th. Can you believe it's 4 weeks from Thanksgiving? I love it, love it, love it. And the 4 weeks after that, Christmas. Everybody, this is the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. If you want to hear the podcast of this show and any and all shows that I've done, please go to WCPT820.com/Santita. All right, everybody. We've got a tremendous panel here, and I wanted David Massiotra of Salon Magazine and, of course, his latest book. He's got tremendous books on Barack Obama, John Mellencamp, so much writing, brilliant writing. He's done so many wonderful insights. His latest book is I Am Somebody, Why Jesse Jackson Matters. Why would the politics of, this populist movement that Reverend Jackson and others led by Reverend Jackson in the 80s, why would that be? Why would that be, how could we learn from that in this moment? Why could that be applied now?
Absolutely. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. Reverend Jesse Jackson really responded. He led the most successful voter registration drive in American history in 1983, registering 6 million Americans to vote. And at almost all of those stops, his audiences would chant, "Run, Jesse, run." So he was responding to that people's call to run for president. And when he did, he acted as a docent, a valet, for not only progressive political positions, the kind of which we're still fighting to enact now, such as paid family leave and a living wage instead of a minimum wage and full employment through infrastructure and free community college. But he acted as a valet and docent for millions more voters into the Democratic Party. Black voters, Latino voters, as the first candidate to support gay rights, gay voters, student voters, progressive women. I mean, it really represented the full polity of the American experience. And according to Democratic Party strategists, and even Lee Atwater, infamous Republican Party strategist, the Jackson movement and campaigns kept alive progressive politics in the United States in the midst of the reactionary Reagan Revolution. But it's not all a happy story, because Jackson was not only battling the Republican Party, he was battling the establishment of the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party was so terrified by the potential of Jackson and his voters and volunteers transforming the Democratic Party into a genuinely progressive, working class economics, multiracial Democratic Party, that they formed the DLC, the Democratic Leadership Committee. And the DLC provided funding, provided strategy, and endorsements for corporate Democrats. So we're still in the middle of that fight right now. The way we can apply it to the current kerfuffle is by keeping focus on the necessity of people power. We need a mass movement of voters to become involved in the system so as to reform and transform the system. That becomes difficult when we look at the widespread ignorance that exists among the American public. Because we've so diluted and degraded our education system, significant numbers of Americans, as one of the other guests were saying, they cannot comprehend what's happening right now. So here we return to Democratic leaders. If they really want to enact this agenda, they have to take the message directly to the people and begin to give them something that can act as voter recruitment. You know, Jackson has unique oratorical gifts, but he was also making specific promises and pledges that people could understand would enhance the quality of their lives in a country in the 1980s that was becoming more market-driven and therefore more cruel. That's why people came out to vote in 2020, and that's why they won't vote in 2022 or 2024 if those promises aren't fulfilled. I'm on the record as saying we should vote for Democrats simply because they're not fascist, and we're facing a fascist Republican Party. But many of the average voters aren't going to think in those terms. They need to think about health care. They need to think about paid family leave and so on and so forth.
So what do you...
I don't think the issue is... Hello?
Yes, before I go to the callers.
Hello?
Yep.
I don't think the issue is that they don't comprehend what's happening. I think the issue is that we don't comprehend what's happening. We are deluding ourselves to believe that these people are going to change and the system is going to change based on democracy, when the whole design of the system is to neutralize democracy, is nullify elections and nullify the vote. We are the ones that keep creating this delusion that if we register enough people, if we do the right things, that these people are going to change, and they're not, because they represent not our interests, but corporate interests. And so when we talk about Reverend Jackson did, the thanks he got is they ran him out the party.
No, they didn't run him out the party, Dwight. No, they didn't. What Reverend kept doing was registering more and more and more people. They tried to run him out the party, and he refused to go.
And we have gotten further and further and further behind. If two people could neutralize the 6 million votes that he got, then something is profoundly wrong with this system.
And because you know what?
If we keep listening to these politicians, these traditional Democratic politicians who tell us to vote for them and then won't fight for our interests, then we're just on a merry-go-round. If we're going to be progressive in our politics, then we have to vote for progressive politicians like Bernie Sanders, like Elizabeth Warren, who every time they run, the traditional Democrats talk us out of supporting them and supporting traditional Democrats.
And we have to stop falling for that. And we have to continue to get registered and vote. Because the fact is, we have two options. We can't sit out in this system. We can't do that. But I tell you what, the Constitution itself is constructed in such a way that we can reform the situation and perfect an imperfect union. We can do that. That's what we have to do. That is what has kept Reverend fighting 60 years. That's what kept Dr. King fighting until the end of his life. You have to keep on fighting. You have to support Cori Bush. You have to support AOC. and the squad and Ilhan Omar, all of them, Ayanna Presley. You have to support them. Rashida Tlaib. You have to support them. You have to get out. You have to support them, and you have to make the phone calls. I'm gonna go to some of the callers. Let me go to Pam.
If I could just,
Sorry. Yes,
yeah,
David. Before I go to
I
Pam.
just wanted to say, I don't think there's as much daylight between Dwight and I's positions as it would seem. In fact, Reverend Jackson said to me during one of our conversations, and I give it major play in my book, that the powers that be want enough democracy to legitimate their power, but not enough democracy to empower the people. And that is the central flaw in the system. I agree with Dwight and his analysis on the flaw of American democracy. However, as Reverend Jackson shows, and as many other examples show, the civil rights movement, the labor movement, the women's movement, flawed as it may be, a people-powered movement can use the tools and mechanisms of constitutional democracy to make it better, and therefore to make people's lives better. And as it stands right now, that's our only real choice, because we're not going to destroy the system and remake it, in the immediate future.
Well, Pam, what are your thoughts? Pam?
Yes, Santita, I'm here. Here and disgusted, but not deterred. First and foremost, Santita, in the midst of all of this, Biden nominated Guam as ambassador of Japan. Now, just in the midst of all of this, further upsetting the activists as well as Black people. So I am calling my representative. I called and asked Durbin's office, how much family paid leave do senators get? They have a six-figure salary, so their financial needs are met. So they need to come down here and see what the people need. So I wanted to ask you all a question. Do you all believe that the Progressive Party, it should be all or nothing? Because, we're hearing the Democratic Party, well, something is better than nothing, and we're getting things we've never had before. But the Progressive Party, we're already upset because Joe Biden has cut so many of the things. I mean, family paid leave, really? Can't have 2 years of community college. So that's one point. So I want them to answer the question. Do we go all or nothing, or, how do we work?
What do you mean? What do you mean, do we go all or nothing? What are you asking specifically?
Meaning that do we want our representatives to go on and just support the Build Back Better without the reconciliation piece? I say no, because it seems like that's what Biden wanted to do. If I'm misunderstanding that, please correct me. I know we have two pieces. We have the Build Back Better Act, and then we have the infrastructure, correct? So I'm asking about that. And then, Santita, let me make this comment about your father. These are my words, not yours. Your dad, Reverend Jesse Jackson, means the world to Black people and this country and this world. Fighting for freedom, fighting for the rights of every human being to have some dignity, to just feel like I am somebody. And so, in saying that, let me say, for me, it is and we're facing blowback, not only for the Reverend's run as president, but also we're facing blowback because of President Obama and his run. And Black people came together, voters and others, and made his dream come true. And I feel like he's neglected us. And I don't know whatever animosity or feud that Obama is holding against Reverend Wright and Reverend Jackson. But if Obama can stand himself on that Senate floor, wherever, and give Robert Byrd all kinds of accolades, you mean to tell me you can't come to the table and talk to a man who made it possible for your political dreams to come true? See, that's my issue with Obama. So until he does that, things won't be right with him. And I want to make that clear. We made your political dreams come true. Reverend Jackson made your political dreams come true. You can't iron out whatever differences. You can't come to Rainbow Push. Santita, did he put a call into your family to wish wellness for your mom and your dad?
Yes.
But you can forgive every racist on earth. You can work it out, have a beer summit with Dr. Gates and the racist officers. And I hope that doesn't sound petty, but that's what's on my heart. Reverend Jackson means the world. I'm a member of PUSH. I try to attend the meetings, and I hope that I've been supportive enough, but maybe not. My mother loved him, too. She said Reverend Jackson does in a day what some people don't do in a lifetime. And I thank you, Santita. Thank you so much. And I'll listen. But, the vote, it seems like Biden's putting pressure on the progressives, and he just wants to give Manchin and Sinema and coddle them.
Well, remember, he said he defeated the progressives. Remember, who was supposed to be socialist, which is so ridiculous. He defeated Bernie Sanders. He said, I defeated the socialists. I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do with that? But for the record, President Obama did reach out when my parents were ill, and we thank him for that. But whatever, and there's no grudge. We just have political differences. And see, the thing is, it was never about making his political dreams come true. I think this is part of the problem that we've got now. We've become a little selfish. It's about making the dreams of the people who you run for come true. Making their lives better. It's not about you. It's not about you. That's not the part. If you've been blessed enough for people to lift you up, for them to trust you, and you are allowed to speak for them, then you owe them. And all these people need to get out in the streets and make this thing happen. Because it didn't have to go down like this, Robert Vittillo. It didn't have to go down like this. $16 trillion to 1.75? Huh? What is that?
And you're absolutely correct, and that's why I say that this was not an accident. This was the plan. This is not the system malfunctioning. This is the system operating as intended. This was always Joe Biden's agenda, that he did not want to pass Bernie Sanders' plan into place. Remember, Bernie Sanders started with $15 trillion, and even 3.5 seemed a little too rich for the blood of the centrist and corporate Democrats. And for the people I've talked to on the Hill, we say it's just Manchin and Sinema, but there were other quote-unquote moderate Democrats who were uncomfortable with the $3.5 trillion number. Tester, there were, from what I'm told, there was as many as 6 Democrats who were against it. So I do think that the House progressives should stand up to it. Why exactly should we allow the minority in the party to have an outsized voice and being able to strip out generational legislation? Why exactly should they capitulate? And we've seen the power of obstinance, and we've seen the power that Manchin and Sinema, Manchin from one of the smallest, poorest, least educated states in the country, the Sinema from one of the southwestern states, not usually a political powerhouse. You have McCain from there, but not usually not the party or the states that control national politics. Why should they have this outsized voice in determining the future of the country? And what happens if House Democrats simply say, we're not voting in favor of the physical infrastructure plan? You passed it. You got Republican support. Good for you. Good luck on that. But we are standing up, and we're standing on values. I think that at some point in time, the president will realize that his political future, the party's political future, is at stake. And if he does not pull through, then they lose. And I think you have to play a game of chicken at this point in time. You look within the same party, and I think Manchin and Sinema and the Biden wing of the party will blink first, because these House progressives are not playing. This is not your grandparents' party anymore. And I think the political establishment is going to have to come to terms with that.
Well, they picked up, I think, David, they've kind of picked up where Reverend and Bernie have left off. They are not playing.
They are. Yeah, they're the political children of the Reverend Jackson vision and mission for the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders was a political child of that vision and mission. By his own testimony, he has said over and over and over again he would have never run for Congress as mayor of Burlington, Vermont, had it not been for the Jackson campaigns and the support that Reverend Jackson gave him. Paul Wellstone, may he rest in peace.
Absolutely.
He was the most progressive senator in the United States Senate for many years throughout the 90s and up until his death in the early 2000s. He came out of the Jackson campaign. So we're still seeing how Jackson 84 and Jackson 88, again, I don't often quote Lee Atwater, but to return to his quote, kept progressive politics alive in the United States. What's happened simultaneously is the Republican Party has become almost entirely unified. They've gone to the far right, and they've developed obstinacy, and they've become even opposed to parliamentary politics in that they no longer support liberal democracy. So you have the Democratic Party with a warring faction, progressive politics versus corporate politics, fighting against a unified far-right autocratic Republican Party. And that's why we've reached this logjam. So in a broader sense, it demonstrates the degradation of our political system and therefore emphasizes once again how much is at stake between the fight of progressives and corporate Democrats.
Mm-hmm. Mark, how is this what's going to happen in you? Because you are right there. You're between New York and Washington and Virginia. What do you see happening on Tuesday in response to all of this?
Well, we have reason to be worried about Virginia for all the reasons we've said. Let me just say a couple things. I don't think that anyone would suggest people not vote. I think the reality in America is this. The default position, because we live still in a culture where there is an inherent apathy to vote. Other countries around the world, it's just not quite that way. That's just how America is. And people have to be motivated to vote. And one of the reasons they have to be motivated to vote, I guess, is because they don't see any real results. So the question then becomes, and I think everybody here and everybody who listens to yours, or the people who turn on the Santita Jackson show are not the people we're concerned about not voting. It's the people who normally don't vote, and the people we went out exceptionally to encourage to vote last year to get rid of Trump and put the Democrats in power. And that's where the problem comes in, because the argument was made that we would be saving the world by getting rid of Trump and putting Democrats back in power. And so that raises a level of consciousness for people. Yeah, well, I did that. I normally would have done that, but I did it. I got out and voted. And now what is happening as a result of it? I think that's the hill and the mountain we're going to be faced with next year in 2022 that the party doesn't get. And let me say this about the party. You know, at some point, Santita, I hope you'll do a show. We talk about corporatists in general and other influence of the party. But there's another major influence on the Democratic Party today. It is the consultant class itself. Now, these are the people who say to a Biden White House and to the Democrats and running for election that less is more. Don't stick your neck out. Don't make tough decisions so you can't be held accountable to them. That is another thing that we're facing. And part of that consultant class is really scary. It's saying this. You remember when Joe Manchin said a few weeks ago, well, if you don't like what I'm doing, elect more progressives. The consultant class actually believes that what Joe Manchin is doing is itself going to mobilize more people to get out to the polls and vote. But they haven't checked in with the people who actually are on the ground who do have to mobilize people to get out and vote. So I just want to put that out there.
Well, that's because they consult. It's just like all the people you see on television, all the pundits. I'm like, you're not out here working with people. What are you doing? And then you have people predicting who don't talk to people at all. See, Pam was letting you know where people are, okay? You can get upset with me if you want. I'm not going to censor Pam. I heard Chappelle all week. It's the same thing. You have to listen to the people and not tell them that they've got to do it or else. That is not going to work. You're talking to grown people who have agency. You're not going to make them do anything. What you need to do is do right by them. We need paid family leave. We need equal access to equal high quality health care, education, Housing, that's what we need. But the corporatists and the corporations don't want you to have it because they built this country on your being a slave and an indentured servant. That's how they built it. And you need to turn that around because the genius of our founding fathers, and they were human, they weren't perfect. But the genius of how they constructed the Constitution is that they constructed it in such a way that you can make changes. For you need to do that.
For the right people.
Absolutely. You have to support them once they get there, Dwight. You have to support them. So call Cori Bush today and support her. Call AOC and Ayanna and Mondare and all these people. Call them and support them today. Call Professor Paul's office to hold the line. Call Nancy Pelosi's office and say, don't you dare raise the vote until we get what we need. That's what you need to do. You have a dog in the fight. You're the one who has to get the fight. You can't just proxy out your fight to someone else. You can't let that happen. Like we do in church. Go in church and we expect the pastor to be just cast all of our sins off for us. No, honey, you got to do some work. So 202-224-3121. 202-225-3121. That's the House and the Senate side. Make some calls today. That's what you need to do. Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show channel on YouTube and on the Santita Jackson and Friends page because I want my wonderful panel to have some closing thoughts today. And maybe if Robert is still there, we can talk to him. But I want to thank you, Paul, for a great show. I want to thank everybody for calling in. But, if you make some calls like right in through here, I will take them. And we're going to talk for about 10, 15 more minutes, get some thoughts from everybody. But get out there and vote. But once you do it, right now is the time for you to push. It's the time for you to push. How do we get from $16 trillion to 1.75? You kidding me? Because the corporatists and the corporations took over. Now you need to take it back. It's your country. It's your country. Believe it or not. You built this country. Amen. Stay right here and have a great weekend. I'll see you on Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson on Sunday. God bless. All right, everybody. We are on Facebook Live and every place else. But wow, I don't know how. I don't know where this comes from. Where everybody says that if you say, okay, well, we have to take this. That means you're saying, and when you get angry about it, they say that you're saying don't vote. I'm like, where does it come from? And that's a game that people are playing on us. I don't like people trying to toy with me. Don't play with me. I'm grown. I will criticize as long as I need to, and I will critique. That is my job. And that's what you're supposed to do. You're not just supposed to take this, Dwight.
I think people are saying more than saying don't vote. They're saying why vote.
Okay.
I think just to agree the question, why vote? Is that if we vote and there's no deliverables, then what is our motive? And that's why I keep going back to we should vote, but we have to vote for the right people because we've been persuaded that the people who we vote for are our friends and they're really our enemies.
I agree.
If Biden was serious about democracy, if he was consistent, when the Haitians came over looking for a home, just like they did with the Afghanistan, people from Afghanistan, he would have found them a home in a place like Florida, and in 5 or 10 years, when they matured into citizenship, they would be sufficient enough to change the balance of power in Florida, which would change the balance of power for the country. But what did he do when he had that opportunity? Because they were black, he threw them out of the country in 7 days. Guys, serious about white supremacy as Trump is about white supremacy. They just frame it in a different way. But they have the same aspirations that Trump has. I'm a firm believer in that. And they hide behind Manson and these other folks. And Mark is right. If LBJ was president, this would have never happened.
Because you know what we were doing? We were also getting registered to vote. Black people were on the move. We had leadership that we owned, that we sent. Now we have a lot of leaders who've been sent to us. And look at where we are.
Yeah.
I would have,
A question I would have for the historians in the room.
Sorry.
To the point in American history, a single legislator had an ability to really command what does and doesn't go like Joe Manchin. I'm not aware that has ever happened before.
But he's a proxy.
And
you know, I mean, because he's doing what Biden. He and Sinema. I'm with you. He's doing what Biden and the corporate blue dog Democrats want. What the corporatists want. I mean, and they're taking the hit for it, and they're gonna get paid for it. That is their campaign coffers will stay full. And we're going to be told when Manchin runs again, we've got to keep a Democrat in West Virginia. If we don't have a Democrat in West Virginia, we'll have no Democrats we'll have statewide elections, statewide office. I mean, really?
But I guess what I'm really saying, though, Santita, is that if we unpack that, I think to even the average, the most disengaged political voter, they look at that and they say, we've never seen it. What is it? Why is that? And I think what they don't realize is, and to David's point, is that ultimately that becomes an existential crisis. People are going to be saying, why? What is the Democratic Party that this can even be allowed to happen? And what is it that we are really doing? What are we really voting for? Biden runs the risk of giving back power to the Republicans quicker than any Democrat in history. And it all comes up in Haitian peace. They are making intelligent decisions. Whoever decides for all the stuff that they're doing. And even this thing yesterday, I mean, that first of all, the progressives are not going to vote for that before Manchin and Sinema do. And Manchin and Sinema, as of this morning, have yet to. Biden went up there, had him, brought him to the House. Up in Delaware, did all this courting, and the two of them have yet to say, okay, well, we're going to be for this too.
But they don't have to. They wouldn't even come up with a top line number. I'm saying this goes beyond any of this. I think this is a corporate driven policy.
That, something Reverend Barber said yesterday too. Biden said yesterday that the failure success of his presidency was based on this. Reverend Barber said, if the failure success of your presidency is based on this one thing, you're in pretty bad shape.
Yeah, and that was my point exactly. Thank you, Mark. Right now, the Republican Party has become so extreme and so opposed to liberal democracy that the survival and preservation of our democratic system, as flawed as it is at stake. And given that democracy itself is hanging in the balance due to voter suppression, due to partisan infiltration of county election boards and school boards, due to an increasingly hostile and violent Republican Party, the Democratic Party would have to show some aggression on two fronts. First of all, directly opposing Republican plans for the degradation of democracy and the transformation of it into an autocracy, which they aren't doing. They're casting aside the John Lewis Act. They're casting aside the For the People Act. And then second, giving people an agenda that they can easily digest and support in 2022 and 2024. Now, in the beginning of the Biden administration, it looked promising because they passed a one-year version of the child tax credit. But now even that's in danger because it doesn't look like they're going to extend it. And my point is exactly that the average American is politically disengaged and politically uninformed. I don't say that in a snobbish way. Mm-hmm. It's a well-documented fact. Massive numbers of Americans can't even name the senators in their own state. So you need to give Americans something they can easily understand, meaning something that enhances the quality of their life, to go to the polls and support. And if Democrats refuse to do that, if they can only say, "Oh, we repaired a bridge 4 counties over," from your home, they're simply not going to go vote because they're going to say, what's the point? I did it in 2020 in the middle of a pandemic, and some guy I never heard of, I never voted for, named Joe Manchin, prevented the agenda I wanted to see enacted from becoming a reality. And that's going to play right into the Republican Party's hands, who, if it was up to them, would roll back the clock on the decades of progress that Reverend Jesse Jackson and Martin Luther King and Fannie Lou Hamer and Zaki and so many others sacrificed to make possible.
And maybe that's what they want.
Yeah.
Because it satisfies their corporatist agenda. Because, see, to me, all of this goes beyond party. This is transpartisan. It's a bipartisan betrayal. This is about corporations who use Democrats and Republicans to maintain a system. That's what they do.
Now, I'm gonna say something. How much time we got, Santita, before we go back on?
Well, no, we're off the air, but we're on Facebook Live.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Run, but thank you so much.
But do you want to say? Is there anything else you'd like to say before you go?
No, I'll listen to everyone else as I get ready here.
Sending you much love. Give my love to Sarah.
I will. Thank you again.
Yeah, brother. Look, I want to say this real quick. You asked me about Virginia. I didn't get to say real quick on Virginia. We are in trouble, again, because of apathy. And Terry McAuliffe is about as exciting as watching paint dry. But he was the default. We may be saved because Youngkin is so stupid. If you know that the black vote is apathetic and not turning out, why would you put an ad out there attacking Toni Morrison?
But wait a minute, are they apathetic? Are they apathetic or are they angry? Because I get the sense from people in Virginia, and I still have people down there. You got Justin Fairfax, the black lieutenant governor, who was jammed. People are not happy about that. And then you had two black women who could have been, who were on track to maybe become the Democratic nominees, and they were pushed aside so that you could get Terry McAuliffe back in there. I mean, it just seems, it seems like there's a little bit more to it than that.
Well, I think a little both is apathy and anger. Now, the former Rainbow staffer, Gary Flowers, on his radio show the other day had LeVar Stoney, the mayor of Richmond, on, and accused Stoney and the party establishment in Virginia, which he's a part of sidelining Justin. And I'm not there. These are Gary's words, and that the two sisters were used to help split the black vote and get Terry to win.
And my point is, that is the black conversation. Right. And so when you have Douglas Wilder, who was never a progressive Democrat, but he did benefit from Reverend running and registering all those voters in 84. That's why he became lieutenant governor in 85. And then registering millions more in 1988, which is why he became governor in 1989. When he is in Terry McAuliffe's back, I mean, he is kicking him all over the place. I said, there's another black conversation happening, because I had Gary on this show about a week and a half ago. Because I'm clear that there's another conversation going, because I bumped into the McAuliffes at a family event. Not my family event, but another family event a couple of weeks ago. And I said, his wife said, we are in a real fight. They shouldn't be in a real fight. But by all rights, Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax should be the nominee. He should be moving toward the governor's mansion right now, and he is not. And people are not happy about it. I mean, because this is a state Reverend won in 1984. No one could have been more shocked than I. I knew Reverend was registering all these people, but these folks came out and voted.
Yeah.
So I think that's a conversation that no one's even having on the national level. That what black people, apathy, we're angry in Virginia, and it manifests itself not in apathy, but in saying, you know what, I'm not going to give you my vote.
Well, but yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I think what complicates it, with Justin's case, though, I think the reason it's difficult to discuss is because we are now still in, and probably will for a good while. And I'm not knocking that in a Me Too moment. But the question for this Me Too moment is, at what point do we continue to default or stop defaulting to women must be believed at all times? I'm just asking a question.
Well, that's
right now, that is the default position, which is fine. But
you got to open the door for women to be believed, because that's been the problem.
Right.
The problem is also when people are in consensual situations and then they're called harassment. That's a problem. And we need to stop that, because whatever happened with, no one pushed Justin Fairfax out of office, because if he were a rapist, he would have been pushed out. That didn't happen. That came up.
And what we also
flamed out, and you know what it did? It seared him. It scarred him. Which, I mean, when it happened, I said he won't be able to run for governor because people are going to fall for this.
Yeah. Well, and just to remind everyone, and again, I don't know the story. I don't know who's right or wrong in that, but this is just an unalterable objective fact. The story, the allegation came forward when, and I was involved in this, when the argument was made for Ralph Northam to step down because of blackface. And within hours, the story came up because it was very clear that Justin was going to be the governor in 24 hours. And it was I've never seen anything like it. It was literally overnight the story came up. And then all these photographs surfaced, Ralph Northam, LeVar Stoney, and the accuser. Again, I'm not in a position to litigate that allegation, but it is just the fact that happened. Okay, so that happened. And now people would say, well, we don't like Terry McAuliffe. Well, that's kind of what you're left with. And it would be a real setback for the place where Charlottesville happened. And Heather Heyer's family is suing the organizers of that demonstration and killed her, for that to go right back into the hands of someone like Youngkin. So I guess what I'm also saying is it's somewhat of a gift that Youngkin, because Republicans still can't seem to get away from attacking us. He's either critical race theory or something else. So now he's bringing up one of the most, revered black women in black culture, and I just have to hope that's going to mobilize some of us in Virginia at this late hour. They're attacking Toni Morrison with the whole, I would ban her books. I would ban Toni Morrison's books if I'm governor.
I just don't even know if I don't think that's going to do it. With all due respect, I really don't.
Well, if it's going to be tight, if it gets out a few hundred more, then it does help.
I hear you.
I would have done that.
I hear you, but
I'm saying it was dumb for him to do that. Terry McAuliffe's on the ropes, and he knows he needs a black vote. Why would you start attacking a black woman?
Yeah, I think that's but Republicans are much more calculating than that. I just think that's a calculation. And we're also in an environment in which black people can be attacked. I think that this thing with Justin Fairfax, I think it cut even deeper than anyone really wants to say. I do. And and then you've got this. You didn't get the Justice and Policing Act. You haven't gotten John Lewis's act. There's just so much. It's all of that, Mark. I don't think there's daylight between all that we're saying. I think we're just adding stuff to the mix. But Dwight, are you there? Were you saying something?
No, I was listening to you all.
Yeah, I just think that there's a lot there. I think there's just a lot, and we have to be mindful of the fact that it's a lot. And people take a whole lot. You heard Pam. Pam was like, she has had it up to the sky. And I'm hearing that from a lot of people.
And justifiably. And we act as if black people's insult is based on some delusion or some miscalculation. when they're insulted based on the fact they have been insulted. The insult level is based on the fact that they have been insulted.
Isn't that how Reverend ran, Dwight? We had an insult level. You asked the presumptive nominee of the party, who was Mondale, and the liberal titan of the party, Ted Kennedy at the time, we are on the verge of getting a black mayor. Please don't come in and support the candidates who are opposing him. We know this is 1983. We know you're about to run for president, Mr. Vice President Mondale. So please don't come here, because I know we're the backbone of the party. We're your base of support. Please don't come here. And they came to Chicago anyway. They were pelted with eggs and such. And Mayor Hatcher, who was the vice chair of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and Mayor Marion Barry, and Reverend, and a few other people said, now, you know what? They just came in here and insulted us, because if you recall, the Harold Washington campaign was a national campaign. Because getting to be mayor of Chicago was huge. And they came here and supported Mayor Byrne and Richard Daley. I mean, and didn't care, because black folks were going to support them anyway. No. It was our insult level. Isn't that what you called it?
Did last week by putting up Rom.
Hello.
In direct defiance of black attitudes and black expectations.
Wait a minute, Dwight. On what day? On what day, Dwight? On the anniversary. On what anniversary?
The anniversary of McDonald's death. Of having him gotten shot 16 times in the cover-up. And he was saying to black people, I don't care if you have an opinion. I don't care if you don't like this. I'm trying to put these policies together with Japan and with Israel and Australia and organize them against China. And whether you all insulted or not, it don't matter to me. Because I'm the president. This is my country, and I'm going to do what I want to do, and y'all going to vote for me anyway. We have a right to be insulted.
Who's that?
I knew Ron was on the table. I missed him actually putting him in. He put him in last week.
Well, he put his name in nomination, and he has the votes. The one senator who the senator from Oregon, who was a critic. He was shut down by Chairman Menendez. So there you have it. Watch the hearing. So, acting as if black people just get upset and, well, you don't have a choice, and if you don't vote, no, stop that. Stop treating us like we're children. Stop that. Don't do that.
Wait a minute. They had the hearing. The Senate Committee on Foreign Relations had the hearing on
the anniversary of Laquan McDonald's death, the 7th anniversary. And they had an opportunity to move it, Mark, but they refused to move it. So the senators who greeted Rahm Emanuel, former Mayor Emanuel, they all acknowledged, this is a sad day, and then they went right into, well, we support you because.
Jesus.
Yeah, call on him. And Jesus needs you to help yourself. By the way, you're the minister. You know this. So, if anyone doesn't have anything else they want to say, I don't know who's still here. Is Aaron still here? I don't know who's still here. Robert, anyone still here? I'm going to let you lovely people go. I want you all to make some closing remarks, and then we're going to head on out into the wild blue yonder. But it's something to think about. I hope that you all got some good stuff out of the show today. Woo! Oh boy. Dwight McKee, let me have you and then Mark. I'll close this out. Dwight McKee.
Well, I respect the people like Sister Pam's sister called in today. Is that they do have an insult level.
What did you hear from Pam? Let me before you say anything else. What did you hear Pam say, Dwight?
I heard her say that, yes, I am insulted. I've been watching very closely, seeing how this thing is playing out, and we're being played as it play out. the ones being played in it is us. And I'm tired of it, and I'm trying to calculate what I have to lose in this. If I vote, what do I win? If I don't vote, what do I lose? And she's urgently trying to figure that out, that her civic duty says that she should keep fighting. And yet reality tells her the more she fights, the more further behind she gets. And she's in a dilemma. And I'm hearing a lot of people saying that, is that what am I fighting for and who am I fighting for? Is this, that's why I use the analogy of, am I going to get eaten by the lion? I'm getting by the tiger. And is there a difference? It's not certainly not a difference in their appetite. It's Republicans and the Democrats are both treating me the same way. And so what am I fighting for? What am I voting for? What is my real reality? And what are my options? What are my choices? And I think until we figure that out, we're going to keep running into this combination of anger and apathy that at some point is going to just turn the whole turn the whole dynamic over to the Republicans. And will it be worse for us? Probably. But we've had it bad before, and we survived that. You know, maybe we may need to go back to the days. So I open up saying that we really have to rethink the politics of our ancestors who wasn't dependent upon the Republicans or the Democrats. They really was operating off a certain level of self-sufficiency and self-definition. We probably need to revisit the Booker T. Washington, Elijah Muhammad model.
Well, Elijah Muhammad didn't vote, but I'm hearing you.
It's not working for us.
No, but look, but we have always, Reverend Jackson has always preached and pushed self-sufficiency. We've always done that. But what we have to also do, because Reverend Jackson also reminds us that we were in slavery longer than we have been free. And that's not just black people. America cannot be free until everybody in the country is free. So we have been free. We were in slavery about 250 years, less 4 years. And then we have been more than 100 years. It's not been long. So there's a lot about freedom and certainly liberty that we have not known. And the whole power game, oh my goodness, we're all very, 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 very new to this. And quite frankly, the human family is new to power. That's why America, just at least on the optics, has been a beacon unto the world, because you get a chance to have your say. But you have to get involved.
And there have been people who made money out of every day we've been in slavery.
Every day.
Democrat and Republican.
Every day. Absolutely. Thing. This is not party, everybody. It's a little bit more than that. This is business. And as you have said, Dwight, over and over again, we were brought over here on business. This was a business deal. That is what Christopher Columbus came over here on, a business proposition. He was a pirate looking to get riches, steal from countries that were already inhabited by people, so he could take it back to Queen Isabella. That's what they did.
And they did that.
That's right, King George. I mean, this is what this is for. This is a big colonial experiment, and to show you how locked into colonialism the oligarchs of the day are. They're talking about colonizing space, not exploring space. No, let's see what's out there. Maybe someone's out there. I don't know. They already know people. They already know entities are out there. They want to colonize space. My mother said, how foolish. They have not learned. You think that they're going to be able to go out into space and take a piece of it? God made you steward over the world, and you haven't even figured this out. You're trying to mess it up. Mark, your closing thoughts, honey bun. It's too much.
I'm still tickled about Booker T and Elijah Muhammad. I mean, that's so real, but it's funny too, because
Tulsa. If you look at all these places coming out of slavery, black people felt that we needed to depend upon ourselves. And on our best days, that is what we have done. And you know what also happened?
Right.
The white community, the first time you dropped bombs in the United States history was dropped on black people in Tulsa. by private folk who got government permission to get government planes and drop the bombs on us. Every time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
please, self-sufficiency. Well, we have to. I think Dwight is right. We have to get back to that because so much now we want our movement to be corporate sponsored. That is not how that's going to work. You have to do this yourself.
Yeah. Right.
Mark, your closing thoughts?
Well, I don't know what else I'd add to what I've already said.
You said a lot.
Well, I hope folks figure out a way to make it work in Virginia. I don't know, but it feels funny to say to people, get out and vote without enthusiasm, because there's not really much to be enthusiastic about Chair McAuliffe, and I don't know if we can continue to motivate people around stopping Donald Trump. But that's not false. That's real, folks. He's trying to come back.
He never left. The media mentioned him every single day. And you know what? We've lived through slavery, so you can't frighten me with him. You can't.
Yeah. So folks in Virginia, those of you who are around, just remember Charlottesville and every side, many sides, and all that stuff he was saying. As Santita said earlier, we can't not vote at all. We can't just resign ourselves. We just have to keep fighting and then be in a position. And one other thing I would just add, folks, at some point, we've got to get out of being in a position of defense and reaction. Santita mentioned supporting the Cori Bushes and AOCs and Ayanna Presleys of the world. That's true. But it's not too early to start cultivating those same types of people in your own community and supporting progressives doing work in your own community and building a bench. And maybe it's in the mirror, y'all. Maybe it's in the mirror that some of us need to look and find the answer. And see, just the time what Dwight was saying about Booker T. and Elijah Muhammad, if that was self-sufficiency begins in the mirror. Maybe some of you within our earshot ought to think about at some point getting yourselves together to be one of these people to seek office. Now, don't get me wrong. I know Santita is like me. We hear from folk every day. I'm getting around for U.S. Senate, so slow down. You got to start. You just think jump up in the Senate. It might be at a city council level. Why is that important? Because at the city council level, you can affect policing policy. That's where policing is governed. It's city council, mayoral level. Or it could be at the state house level where there is redistricting. You could stop gerrymandering. Those are still important. You don't have to start at the U.S. Senate and then work your way up. But ultimately, maybe that's what part of what self-sufficiency is, because we know some of these folk ain't getting it. And if we had more of that in Virginia, maybe we wouldn't be looking at Chair McAuliffe. Maybe we'd have plenty of other options. And then we have to support each other. A lesson from Boston. Boston's going to get a black mayor. Several black candidates ran, split the vote. All of their votes combined outnumbered the Democratic nominee or the next person is going to be the mayor. Now, she's actually progressive, the young lady who won. But still, and she probably will be good. But we, even as a black community, have to be more intelligent, more strategic. Look in the mirror. Let's talk about
Mark? Ooh. Well,
small dollar donations today, not not next year at the last minute. They're beginning that work today for next year. So if you can, send them $5 and $10 now. Don't wait. And I'm done. God bless you all.
Okay, and also you have been active on this chat line today, and I appreciate that. The fact is, I think people do need to register and vote, and you have to out-register. You have to out-register and then out-vote people. And then you can't stop at the voting booth. You have to call, and you have to go to people's offices. Oh, yeah. This form of government that we have requires that you be involved. It requires that you take an active role. You can't leave it to somebody else. This form of government is not for children. It's for grown folks. and you're grown. So think about that, everybody. Think about that. And I'm not going to tell you not to vote, but I'm not going to tell you to vote for someone who continues to abuse you. I'm not going to tell you that. Now, I'm not Reverend. No, we're not talking about Reverend. We're talking to me. Okay? Because I lived through, and I have to write it down and write about it. I mean, when I talked to State Senator Nina Turner, she is shocked at the personal and institutional insults that Reverend, my mother, and our family had to absorb in order for her to have the space that she has now. In order for Bernie to have the space. And Reverend said, I'm taking the insult because it's not about me. And I'm going to keep on working. I'm going to keep on pushing. I'm going to keep on registering people to vote. I'm going to keep on working because it's not about me. If I stop, then the people behind me are not going to get through the door. And God knows he was right. That having been said, you must demand that the people that you elect are accountable to you. And before you get who you want, you need to get what you need. And you need to exact promises and make them come through on them when they get elected. Don't play with people. I told you, I don't do cross-species love. I don't play with puppies, and therefore they do not lick me in the mouth. Stop letting people play with you. Stop letting people play with you. Get in there and make the people you elect work for you. Make them work for you. Make them work for you. Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, Dwight McKee said it best. It works when you work it. This system works beautifully when you work it. Ask the right wing, ask the corporatists, ask the corporations. They love the system because they work the system. They hire their lobbyists, and so you need to hire your lobbyists. You need to pay for them. Those are your organizations. ACP, you should have a lifetime membership. That's right. NAN, Operation Push, Rainbow Push, Urban League. You should apportion a part of your money to these organizations that lobby for you. National Conference of Negro Women. On and on and on and on. Freedom is not free. You got to pay for it. You must pay for it. So I love you, everybody. Mark, thank you, because I know you were arrested yesterday. I know you need a little bit of rest, so you can go back out and get arrested again. With Melanie.
And wait. And listen, my train got in. I got in on train at 4:00 this morning.
Thank you for getting up for us, really, because I didn't expect you to, but I did put you on my run sheet.
No, I was already up. I mean, my body won't let me rest, so I'm gonna try to get a little nap or something.
Get some rest. Get some rest. You know I love you.
All right,
Dwight McKee. Thank you, Mr. Red, Black, and Green. Love you, Dwight. Yes. Thank you, Paul, for a great show, everybody. I love you. And if you want to see the show, hey, Effie, sending you much love. Please go to WCPT820.com/Santita, Thank you, girl. I love you, Effie. Thank you, Maddie. Love you, Daryl, D. Ray, Robert, everybody. I love y'all. Love you, Dave Dowling. Love you, Linear Bob. Osa, love you, Andre, everybody. Arlene, love you. Third parties don't win. They might not win right now. We don't know what they'll do in the future, Arlene. You just don't know. But I tell you what, we have got to win. Parties, whatever, you got to win. And you got to make the determination that you are going to win. You're going to win. Love you. Love you, everybody. See you on Sunday on Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. And then I will see you, hopefully, on Monday here on the Santita Jackson Show. Love you, everybody. Have a great one. Thank you, Paul. Have a great one.